My name is Johanne. My name means God is gracious. And my life has been slathered in grace. My story is very much a work in progress. It doesn't end in a perfectly tied bow, but a package that is much more messy than I had thought previously. I was born and raised in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. I come from a long line of Mennonite farmers. Thank you. I am not one. I am of the first generation, actually, that my first language is not German. I married a non-German, crazy. I used to be ashamed, actually, of my heritage, but I've come to love our traditions and history and make 12 loaves of bread ever so often at a time. I am the oldest of two girls. One of my earliest memories is around the age of 5. My mom was crying in her bedroom, and my dad was leaving the house because I had heard that he had an affair with another woman from the church that we were attending. I remember being scared and very aware that something terrible was happening. I remember a lot of fighting and yelling in our home. I'd soon come to understand that I was born into the home of an alcoholic father and a codependent mother, which came out as enabling, needing to control an out-of-control environment, and allowing my father's behavior and addiction to rule the household, while we all walked on eggshells to try to keep the peace. I learned how to be codependent from a young age. I had friends growing up, but I always struggled to believe that people actually liked me and actually wanted to be my friend. I struggled with many insecurities and was bullied in elementary school and high school. I was good at sports, academics came easy to me, and music, while I hated practicing, I really loved. I have always loved to sing. I have practiced many Grammy acceptance speeches and performances in my bedroom growing up. I knew every Celine Dion song by heart, as a good Canadian girl would. I remember being in grade 2 and begging my choir director to give me a solo. And she told me that only grade 6 students got solos, and I convinced her otherwise, and I got the solo anyway. I love to perform and entertain, and I actually could get out of chores by playing the piano for my mom, which my sister hated. My dad, growing up, was not present or engaged. When I think about our father-daughter relationship, these words come to mind: betrayal, rejection, neglect, shaming, unwarranted suspicion, and I am only as good as the bragging stories that he could tell about me. He would yell at me to stop playing the piano, but he would brag to his friends afterward what a great musician I was. He actually still does this to this day. My mom distrusted my dad, and their marriage never seemed to recover from the various affairs he had had. Substance abuse was always there. My sister and I were everything to my mom. She put all of her energy into providing for us, giving us the childhood she didn't have, and being the best mom she could. She tried to fill both of the roles as mother and father. She was very controlling and grew harder and harder to be around as the years went by. I did appreciate, though, that she created a space that was safe to share anything and everything as a teenager, and looking back, this likely kept me out of a lot of trouble. I tried to connect with my dad in my teen years by walking our family dog together. I remember one walk in particular when I asked my dad about God and what he believed in, and he told me that he had done terrible, unimaginable things in his life and that he's beyond forgiveness and grace. I remember feeling really sad for him, and I told him that I don't believe there's anyone beyond forgiveness and grace. Into my teen years and early adulthood, I was starved for the attention of males. I pursued guys and felt rejected often. I was insecure about my weight and how I looked. I didn't feel beautiful, and I compared myself constantly to others that I deemed far more desirable than I was. So I got out of Saskatoon as soon as possible. I moved to BC to go to college, where I studied music. I needed a new start. I needed to go somewhere that no one knew me and I could run as far away as possible from my chaotic life. It was there that I met Josh, my husband. Whew. He'll be sharing his story soon. You'll get the other side of it. To keep going, I had never felt so comfortable with another person than I did with Josh. It was so natural. We loved being around each other and developed an immediate friendship. He was the first guy to pursue me and run after me. It felt good to be wanted and told that I was beautiful. I had no idea that I was going to marry someone addicted to porn already for many years before we met. I had no idea he would become an alcoholic. I didn't expect to start getting emotional. I had no idea he would become an alcoholic, sorry. We got married in August 2008, and we've been married for 10 and a half years now. That summer, Josh dropped out of school and worked hard to provide for us, always. I completed a BA. We moved to Saskatoon for 8 months, and then on to Ottawa in January 2010. I've had a love-hate relationship with the church for as long as I can remember. It didn't take long for me to think that most church people were hypocritical and Sundays looked more like a social country club than the church that I'd read about in the Bible. I've experienced betrayal, rejection, and feeling used by the church for the gifts and talents I could offer. Sound familiar? I realize now that my issues and hurts from my father were relived and experienced in my church experience, further adding to my resentment and hurt. I loved Jesus, but had a hard time loving the church. Somehow, though, I've never left. I remember the first time that I heard John and Vicky speak and tell their story. I had never heard anyone speak so openly about infidelity and addiction like they did. I also had never heard the other side of the story, recovery, and I had to know more. I talked to Vicky after and asked if she'd meet me for coffee. I told her about my life and childhood. We became friends very quickly. I firmly believe God kept us going to church so we could meet John and Vicky. I don't know where we'd be today if we hadn't met them. We've been following them around for several years now. They tell us the truth, gently and lovingly. It's since knowing them that I've began my own healing journey and recovery under their friendship and guidance. So a few years ago, I discovered Josh's occasional looking at porn and loves to relax and unwind with a couple of beers or a double shot or more of whiskey was actually an addiction. And that addiction had been slowly eroding our marriage from the start and had never allowed pure intimacy to grow between us. Both he and I minimized it and continued on doing the best that we could to lead normal, successful lives. We had good-paying jobs, we loved good food, we bought expensive bottles of wine, we lived downtown in this really nice condo, we rode bicycles, played in bands, and went to church. Our bank account was always full, and life was good. Then we got pregnant. Josh was always ready to have a child, and I had been hesitant because I was terrified that my life, as I knew it, would end the moment I became a mother. I was in the middle of recording an album with my band and hoping to go on tour and finally quit my job to become a full-time musician. I also learned that Josh hadn't been sober from porn, and it was getting worse. I was terrified. But we kept going, and eventually, I didn't think much of it again. The last 2.5 years have been filled with interruption of Josh's relapses. I've been controlled by fear, insecurity, denial, pride, betrayal, and as a result, trying to control my circumstances and Josh. I've been out of control without fully realizing it. The last few months have been especially hard. I've come face to face with the reality that we look much like my codependent mother and addict father. Coming out of denial and into reality is brutally difficult. I still feel ashamed to say that Josh is an addict. I've cried on the kitchen floor, tears of betrayal, hatred of addiction and hopelessness, and riddled with fear. I play worst-case scenarios in my head that terrify me. Most days are tough and heavy, and it's hard for me to just sit in this pain. I'm scared that Josh and I are repeating the patterns that screwed us up in the first place. My fallback is to pretend that everything's okay. But whether I like it or not, the garbage in my life is there. And it'll keep growing and festering bigger and deeper if I ignore it. It doesn't just go away. I'm choosing to be honest, to open my eyes and look to my higher power to be my solution. I've been trying to do it on my own for 32 years, and all of my hard work has resulted in the mess that I find myself in. I'm tired of mustering up my own strength to push through. I have to remind myself that it isn't the way that I look or who I am that drives Josh to look at porn. Insecurity that I've lived with for much of my life keeps trying to creep in and lie to me. The need to control the out-of-control life we have tempts me every single day. Pride tries to convince me that things aren't so bad and steals the joy I have by comparing myself to others. But I'm trying to listen to humility that says that we're all equal, fighting the same fight, even if it looks different person to person. I've found hope in exposing the dark things in my life. Being here right now, sharing my story, has brought hope and healing. I'm learning to put into practice healthy boundaries and what those look like. I'm beginning counseling. I've been through LifeLab, which is an amazing 5-month journey that meets here every Monday. And it's given me tools and language to work on my character defects, work out amends, let go of resentment and hurts. It's a daily practice. I'm learning to take each day as it comes. I'm choosing daily to let my higher power, Jesus, to do the heavy lifting and save me. I hated my father for being an addict. I am choosing daily, I hated my father for being an addict, yet I don't hate Josh. I've recently realized the compassion and empathy that I give to Josh is what I need to give to my own dad. Oddly enough, I feel more free than ever before. I'm coming back to life. I've never seen or experienced the love, joy, hope, and peace than I do now, even in the chaotic storm that I'm in. It's strange to feel hopeful and hopeless all at the same time. I believe and am convinced there's a greater purpose behind and beneath all of this. I remember I have had and have 2 children, and I remember in the labor and delivery process of that, I remember excruciating, intense, like through the roof pain, which actually John and Vicky have both witnessed, and which I don't think I should have said publicly, but it's out. So they've been to both births, so they've seen, and so it's a ton of pain, as half of our population says, and but I remember having these like thoughts of clarity, and I remember thinking, there's purpose to this pain. There's purpose to this pain. You have to keep pushing into the pain in order to get that new life. And so the pain I'm experiencing right now has a purpose. It's to bring new life into the world and come alive day after day. It's to offer hope in hopeless places. It's to shed light into the dark spaces. My name means God is gracious, and I am slathered in grace. I'm a treasured daughter. I'm a trustworthy friend. I'm a more selfless person. I'm a sacrificial mother. I'm a supportive wife, a passionate artist, and I am enough. Josh and I are not my parents, because we're choosing recovery instead of addiction and codependence. Thank you.